I reached 500,000 views on my long form upload on a completely new channel. And I've done this not once but multiple times with channels that I started over the past years. When you're starting out, your channel does not have a high trust score. So it'll be challenging to get many views on your first videos, which means if you're trying to get customers through YouTube, you'll not get any leads or sales from your first videos unless you turn off your monkey brain and listen to me for 10 minutes. Because actually there's 3 secrets that you can apply immediately and that will help you gain this virality on new uploads on a new channel immediately. And each 3 of these secrets are super easy to implement. They are things that have worked for me over the past when building YouTube channels for clients. And let's just get right into it. I don't want to talk for too long. Let's say you have a biker business, okay? You have like some kind of brand, you're selling biker clothes or accessories or whatever. And of course, I'm not saying this was a client of ours, right? Now, the process that I'm going to tell you about is going to seem very specific, but the fact is this is applicable to every freaking industry, and you just need to adjust your expectations according to your total addressable market. So for example, if you have a very specific product, one of our clients, for example, they are doing cooling accessories for fridges and stuff like that. So that's like quite specific, I would say, right? Like, who watches this kind of stuff on YouTube? Well, you would be surprised. On the other hand, we have a client that's doing saunas. He's selling saunas. Now, if you're selling saunas, you do have a bigger group of people that would be interested in your content, right? So what I'm saying here is this here is quite important. Now, the sauna business might get 30,000 views, and then 1% of those will be buying a product. Now let's give an example here, right? So what I'm saying is this here is quite important. Now, for example, let's say you have a product that has quite some mass appeal, okay? So you get 30,000 views on your videos, 1% of those will convert, they buy your $150 product, you made 45K. Now, you might also have a product like these cooling devices for fridges, right? You get only 300 views, and then 1% of those convert. They buy your $15,000 product because these cooling devices are expensive. Now, you still made $45,000, right? Now, in reality, this here might be a little bit lower because if you are targeting these mass markets with your product, the conversion rate, in my experience, is definitely lower, but this here might even be higher. So if you have a very specific channel angle and you're just going into this one thing, like cooling devices for fridges, right? Like, who makes content on that, right? You better bet that the 300 people who watch your video, these people are extremely relevant to you. And then it doesn't really matter if you have 100, 200, 300 views only, you are going to make a lot of revenue with these views. So the next question we always get is, are my customers on YouTube? And the answer is, for fuck's sake, yes. Everybody is on YouTube, okay? Now, obviously, there's differences in quantities, right? So for some things like chocolate, for example, there's like millions of people who are going to watch your videos if you do them right? Then for other things, like some bioengineering processes, well, there's probably going to be less people who are interested in this, but it doesn't matter because, again, what I showed you before. Now let's get back to our example. You want to sell more, so you start a YouTube channel, right? And guess what's going to happen? First video, you get like 5 views. Second video, you get like 10 views. Third video, you get 6 views. And then you give up because you didn't listen. So now listen up. How we broke the algorithm and had massive success starting with the very first video. 3 secrets that you can apply immediately. The first one is Sub-niching. What the hell does this mean? Let me explain. You are obviously in some kind of industry, right? You have a business, so you are in some industry. Whether it's the finance industry, or it's the cookie industry, or it's some completely different industry. Let's assume you're in the finance industry. Now, you have two options how to find the right sub-niche for you. Because many people say, okay, we're in the finance industry, we can just do finance videos on YouTube. No, actually, there's a lot of consideration that can go into building a great format strategy for you on YouTube. So the first axis that we have is this one. It's basically what format. You can do a show, you can do a simple vlog, you can do an online interview, you can do an essay with a head, you can do talking head videos, video essays, and there's much more different formats that you can do on YouTube. Now, the other axis is the content, because if you are in the finance industry, there's still many angles you can take, right? You can take the personal finance angle, you can play finance guru, you can do financial planning, stock explainers, stock gurus. There's so many sub niches in the finance niche, right? And so what we should do if we are starting a YouTube channel is we should identify what format and what sub niche in terms of the content do we want to occupy. Okay, so for example, essay with a hat and finance guru, which means you're sitting in front of the camera and you're trying to build your authority by giving people solid content, and that's video essays with your head, right? You could also do simple vlogs, right? And then do financial planning with people. So you could literally take the camera with you and go to people, explain to them different financial concepts, do financial planning with them, and use that as YouTube content. Okay, so long story short, your industry is fixed, but your sub niche isn't. So you can go and design the perfect format, the perfect strategy for your YouTube start. So for example, what we thought when we started this biker channel, right? Okay, there is a lot of biker interviews out there already. Let us do documentaries. At the point when we started this channel around 2 years ago, there was, I think, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 documentaries about bikers out there. So we were like, great, you know, let us just do biker documentaries. We will not have to do extremely high production value or something, and we can just let it run, and we can build up an audience, and we can convert this audience into cash flow with an offer. And the next thing that we did is we leveraged books, and you can also do exactly the same for your business. Now, granted, for some businesses this is less relevant, for some it's more relevant, but for most it is relevant, because what we did was we saw, okay, there's a lot of books, Health Angels by Hunter S. Thompson, William Queen, Under and Alone, Writing with Evil, whatever, like lots of different books here, right? And that tells us a couple of things. First of all, okay, there seems to be cultural interest in this topic. Secondly, we can look at the titles and the chapters in those books and deduct from that what things people find interesting. And thirdly, we can just steal like artists. We can literally go ahead, look at chapters, paragraphs, take them, amend them obviously, add our own twist to it, and voila, it's essentially a YouTube video. And you don't need to do that in this weird, you know, biker niche. Like, you can do that with e-commerce, you can do that with coaching, you can do that with marketing agencies. There's a lot of literature out there, and I promise if you take a good look at that, it will give you a couple of hints on what kind of content people have questions about and what kind of content structures, titles work well. But the main point remains, you should be sub-niching, right? So don't go in there with a broad strategy. I'm going to do every type of content in my industry. No, you need to decide on firstly the format, and secondly the sub-type of content that you want to create. Now, the second secret is search and browse virality. What does this mean? This is literally the number one thing that all kinds of YouTube gurus forget to talk about. And it's what I think helps us generate videos for clients that go viral, but also stay evergreen, and help them increase their search index, help them be present and visible on Google and so on. Now let's look at this a little bit more closely. So you have two ways how you can get discovered on YouTube. The second one is browse. Now search is very simple. The user enters a query and then they get suggested relevant content. So they are like ice cream production, right? And then YouTube shows them, they type in ice cream production, YouTube shows them ice cream production. Why am I even explaining this, right? You probably are watching this on YouTube, so you know how it works. Now the second way is the more interesting way. The user simply opens YouTube as you did, and then it shows you a couple of videos as it did to you, and then you click my video, right? So the user engages with whatever suggestions they get, and that's called browse-based content and traffic. Another one is search-based traffic. Now, originally, people thought, well, you need to decide, right? Do you want to attract browse-based or search-based content? And here, the thing is that search has a couple of advantages, but also disadvantages. Because search is great for SEO and it's great for evergreen, but it's also very slow. Okay, so if you optimize for search, you will have a lot of the right keywords in your content and you will be found easier. Now this also means if people are always interested in this topic that you're talking about, this video will be evergreen because people will be always searching for it, right? Also a year from now, they will be searching for that and they will probably land on your video. On the other side, it's quite slow if you really just optimize for search because, well, it's not optimized for virality. What we want to do if we want to get onto the YouTube the start page on YouTube or the landing page, your home page when you open up YouTube, is you want to optimize for virality. That's the great thing about browse optimization. You optimize for it being viral. Now, it doesn't have the same SEO benefits and it sometimes is not as evergreen, So basically your YouTube graph could look something like this where it goes up, bam, and then it slows down and basically it evens out, whereas for search it can be like this, it just steadily grows and grows and grows, slowly but steadily, right? Now, should you do one or two? Well, you just ideally combine best of both worlds. You do search and browse together, and that is very easy. Let me explain. As a first thing, you think about your IVP. Who's that? It's your ideal viewer profile. Essentially, that's your ideal customer profile, but they are on YouTube. Now, how do you do this? Internally, what we do is we create a YouTube master plan for our clients. What you can do is just copy some of these questions that are in our master plan. Like, for example, who's your typical customer? What is their primary and secondary goal? What are their typical complaints? So they are tired of something, they're experiencing some inefficiencies, whatever. And then also, who are your competitors on YouTube? All of these questions will inform who your ideal viewer profile is, right? So essentially, you ask yourself these questions, you get a super clear vision of who you want to reach and how your content should look like in order to reach these people. Because as a second step, what you're going to do is you use an outlier database to brainstorm videos for your channel. Now, some of you will be familiar with this name. Some of you don't have an idea what outliers are. Outliers are videos in a channel where, let's say, this channel gets videos that, so here's 0, here's 100,000 views, right? And this channel uploads videos, they always get around 10k views, 10k next month, 10k next week, 10k again, and then suddenly, bam, 100,000 views, right? Next one, 10k, maybe 20, whatever, right? So like compared to the channel average, this one here is obviously a massive outlier. And what we want to do is we want to see why, right? We want to first of all notice that there's an outlier, and then secondly we want to ask ourselves, why is this one an outlier specifically? And what we have is a big table that is being constantly updated with lots of outliers in different industries that are relevant to our customers. And we monitor these industries. We constantly look at what is popping, right? What kind of title and thumbnail format works. And then what we do is we take these outliers, we slightly adapt them to fit our clients' needs. And you can do exactly the same. So let's say you have this outlier here, right? Everything they teach you about, in this case it was Goldman Sachs, everything they teach you at Goldman Sachs in 36 minutes, right? It had 567,000 views. And it was a 23x outlier. So it got 23 more views than the average views on this channel, which is massive, right? Now, what you would do is if you are in a similar or different industry, right? Let's say you are, for simplicity's sake, let's say you are an Andrew Tate follower and student, right? And you are teaching people about some scam of your own, right? You're some e-commerce guru, right? And I guess Andrew Tate in his university, he has some e-commerce courses, right? Then a video that you could do is everything they teach you at Hustlers University, right? By Andrew Tate in, let's say, 50 minutes. You know, if it's a 50-minute video, you would say 50 minutes. And then the thumbnail you would design in a very similar way. It would be you standing there, you know, nicely dressed with a card that says the secret behind Hustlers University or the secret behind e-commerce, whatever, right? So you get the point. You keep title and thumbnail almost the same. You just slightly change it. And this way, you know, this thing is going to work because it worked. It was a massive outlier for someone else. So chances are, if you keep it as similar as possible, it will work for you too. Now, will it be as much of an outlier as this one? Maybe not, you know, because obviously the content also plays a role. Sometimes there's luck involved, whatever, timing, right? But chances are you will get very good results with this strategy. So long story short, how can you emulate that? If you don't have a table like this, here's what I suggest. Ask some freelancer to build it. You can use softwares like 1out of10, Thumbnail Vault, and there's a lot of other tools where you can basically filter for these outliers on YouTube. vidIQ also does it. And then the art, I guess the difficult part is to then make sure that they are relevant to your industry. Because there's a lot of outliers, let's say in the gaming world. To be honest, you can't really learn a lot from them. There's a lot of other outliers and some weird, you know, YouTube niches that they will be displayed to you in these apps, 1out of10, Thumbnail Vault, and so on. And they are not really relevant. You can't really learn anything from them because they are either from some crazy influencers or they are just so different that you can't really emulate it and transfer those learnings to your own, I would say, more or less professional business niche on YouTube, right? So that's kind of the art of it, but there you go. I gave you whatever I could give you, so try to emulate this strategy. And then what you do is you have this nice table, you just scroll through it, and based on your IVP, right, based on what you already have in your head, the questions that they typically have, the kind of inefficiencies they're dealing with, you think about, okay, how can I adapt these videos in a way that they fit my IVP and I don't need to change title and thumbnail too drastically. I can just slightly adjust them a little bit and have a nice video for my audience. This is going to make you go viral. Now, the extra step in order to bring SEO in here is after you have title and thumbnail idea, you run this through tools like vidIQ and you double check for the keyword score. And what many don't know is in 2025 and even before that, you know, it doesn't really matter what keywords you have in the description or in the tags or whatever on YouTube. YouTube literally doesn't care. I mean, it weighs it also into the entire into the total rating, but it is weighted in a very small way. So the more important thing is, what are you actually saying in your video, right? What I always say is, if you put Barbie into your title and into your description, but the whole video you just talk about Oppenheimer, you say Oppenheimer, 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 YouTube still knows it's a video about freaking Oppenheimer, not about Barbie, right? So then what logically you should do is you should use keyword checking tools like vidIQ. You check for these keywords and then you make sure you drop them in your video, often, right? So that YouTube clearly knows, okay, for example, in this case, medical device sales, right? This is a video where it's about medical device sales, right? So just be conscious about using a number of keywords as often as possible in your video script. Now, that's not all. First one is sub-niching, second one is search and browse virality, and there's a third secret that I want you to know in order to make your videos pop as soon as you publish, and even on a new channel. And that's probably the most important part, because there's a trust score. And that's something that, wasn't very known to people, but there is a trust score, and this trust score affects your discoverability on YouTube. It's an unofficial term that refers to how much YouTube trusts your channel based on its history and behavior. So this is not official by YouTube, but this is something YouTube strategists have found out after months and years of working on YouTube, starting new channels and noticing patterns. And this trust score, it affects how you're going to be discovered and how much initial reach you will get and how aggressively your videos will be pushed by YouTube. For example, what YouTube thinks, you have a very old channel, from 2015. It has survived for a long time, and that proves that there is no spam or, rule breaking or whatever going on this channel. And that's why you will have a higher likelihood of immediate indexing and ranking in search or suggested feeds. Now, what can we learn from this, right? How can we manipulate this trust score? Here's the thing. You can get an aged channel organically, or you can buy it. So there's two options. If you have 1K, I suggest you just buy an aged channel. You can get those online if you Google for it. You can also search on X or certain Discord accounts. You can buy these aged channels and you should be fine. Now you should pay attention, because there's also, aged channels that did bad stuff, where there was like videos that were not lawful or against YouTube's policies. You don't want to buy a channel like this, right? So you should have a trusted source that supplies you with these channels. But that's one option you have. And you should pay attention to, the channel age and the consistent publishing history. It should be publishing consistently. There should be no strikes. Viewer engagement should be high. People should be engaging with the content. No strikes or community guideline issues, right? And ideally past videos have done well, and it should be verified and have completed the whole channel setup, right? Now, the thing is, you can also get an aged channel organically. And how do you do that? Well, first of all, if you don't have a YouTube channel, create one as fast as possible. And then what we always try when we work with clients is we get something online as fast as possible, because we have noticed that YouTube needs a little bit of time to get warmed up with your content. So the best thing you can do at the very beginning is don't break any rules. Upload extremely consistently, let's say every Saturday or every Friday or whatever, right? Don't break the cycle. Upload consistency and don't break any rules, and start as early as possible. Even if you don't have uploads ready, create the account already, fill it out properly, have a nice description and so on, so that YouTube knows more or less what's going on, and this will start building your trust score. Now, obviously, this will not substitute that there's people out there who are buying aged channels from 2015 and before, right? You can't basically substitute that. Those are a lot of years. But at the very least, you can do these very regular uploads. You can make sure to keep the cycle and keep it extremely clean. And then in my personal experience, when I look at clients, it takes 1 or 2 months for them to gain traction. So once you have these 4 to 8, let's say maximum 10 videos out there, YouTube knows what's up. They start trusting you and they start giving you the attention that you deserve for you and for your business. Okay, bye.